Hello, everyone. This is Sherry East, President of the South Carolina Education Association. I'm joined today by Kathy Maness, Executive Director at the Palmetto State Teachers Association. We are delighted to be joined today by South Carolina Superintendent of Education, Molly Mitchell Spearman, and the 2021 South Carolina Teacher of the Year, Sarah Gams. We're holding this Tele-Town hall to provide updates on school reopenings, but most importantly, we want to hear your thoughts, ideas, and questions that you may have.
Good afternoon, educators. Thank you for being on this call today. I'm Kathy Maness, the Executive Director of Palmetto State Teachers Association, and I am honored to be with you today. We are nearing the start of a new school year, and our teachers are working harder than they ever before to ensure our students have the best possible learning experience this fall. I want to thank you for what you're doing every day. I look forward to our conversation today with Superintendent Spearman and our new South Carolina Teacher of the Year. This is an interactive conversation. If you'd like to ask a question, just press 9 on your phone at any time to let us know that you'd like to ask a question. If you don't want anyone on the call to hear your comments, you will have a chance to leave a message at the end of this call. Remember, press 9 to get in line to ask a question.
For those of you just joining the call, you're on a live Tele-Town hall conversation with members from the South Carolina Education Association and the Palmetto State Teachers Association. We want to hear your questions and concerns, so just press 9 to raise your hand to ask a question. While people are entering their questions, I would like to invite our new State Teacher of the Year to share a few thoughts. Welcome, Sarah Gams.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here with all of you. I know we're all in the same boat right now, and it's a very difficult one. I've taught English at the middle and high school level for 17 years, but right this second, I feel like I have 0 years of experience. I just got off Zoom with the 4 honor roll teachers for 2021, Sean, Tanya, Ashley, and Rick. And what we're facing as educators, to put it mildly, it's a lot. There are positive changes. Some of our districts have never been one-to-one technology or had technological platforms that enhance and enrich instruction. They've never had those to use before. But with that, there is also a steep learning curve that going one-to-one and learning how to use all those platforms requires. So it's just a lot of work on everyone. Then there are the physical changes in the classroom that we are all grieving. Desks 6 feet apart, no face-to-face group work, no personal items in our schools like our chairs and our lamps. And as I've been passing the torch to the new English department chair at my former school, I have been desperate to help figure out how on earth we're going to teach a hybrid schedule. How are we going to take attendance virtually? What are we going to do if everything changes in a week and we have to start all the way over, as we started over often this summer? It's often overwhelming, especially when all I can remember is last March, when I really believed I would just move my classroom right over to the virtual classroom and nobody would skip a beat. And that worked for about a week. And then my students started disappearing, ghosting me, and I did just learn that term, ghosting. And I realized that I had to go back to the basic, most important aspect of teaching, building relationships. I had to acknowledge that there would be no more normal, only new. And so I had to start over with my students and rebuild their trust in me in a virtual format before we could return to academics. We know as teachers that a child's most basic needs, physical safety, a healthy social and emotional state, must be met before they can learn. And we cannot downplay the trauma that COVID-19 has brought to our state, to our profession, to our families, to our neighbors, to our friends, or to our students. And we have to be sensitive to the fact that the way our students have experienced COVID-19 varies. And while some may thrive in this new educational environment, others will struggle. And just like as teachers, we all have varying and valid fears and concerns about returning to a physical classroom. Our parents and community members who aren't educators also have varied personal experiences and worries and concerns that influence their approach to education. And we are all stakeholders in our students' future, and so we must find a way to communicate effectively and put our students' social and emotional needs and physical safety above all else. Each district in South Carolina, each school, will face its own struggles and challenges. And as teachers, we might, starting now, have 0 years of experience teaching a hybrid, virtual, or a phased-in approach to education. But together, South Carolina teachers have hundreds of years of educational expertise. We know how to reach our students by creating relationships and rapport. and we know how to teach our content. And now we will learn to do it in a new format. And educators have always been lifelong learners, so we're going to be more creative, more innovative, more collaborative, more student-centered than ever before. And while we as teachers continue to work through how we will make these new structures work for our students, we will also continue to use our voices to advocate for our students. We will tell our stories to our administrators, our legislators, our community, all of whom will bear witness to our successes and our failures, and they will use that information that we give them to make informed decisions on the future of education. Our voices matter, and they are listening. I am here if you need me. You can email me at sbtoy2021@sarah.org or follow me starting Monday on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under South Carolina Teacher of the Year. I am happy to imagine, talk through, plan, or collaborate with you. I know we're all going to have to make in-the-moment decisions. We're going to have to pivot, and we're going to have to start over. But working together, we can do this. We are the right people to reimagine education and to take care of our students. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. That was fabulous, and we are delighted that you will be representing our profession this year. If you just joined us, I'd like to welcome you to the Tele-Town Hall tonight, sponsored by Palmetto State Teachers Association and that South Carolina Education Association, and we are delighted that Superintendent Spearman is joining us today. I know y'all have a lot of questions, and we're glad that she is with us. As a reminder, if you want to ask her a question, just press 9 on your phone. Superintendent Spearman, we appreciate your willingness to be with us tonight and to share your insights.
Thanks, Kathy, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Sheila. I appreciate SCEA and Palmetto State Teachers Organization so much, and I hope that your members and of both, if not of one, it's so important. They do fantastic work for you. There's many hours of the day when you're in the classroom teaching that the staff from PSTA and SCEA are representing you at the State House or at the Department of Education or in meetings with me. So thank you all for what you do every day to support teachers. Sarah, we're so proud of you. I had the chance to go to Sarah's house and make a surprise announcement to her as our new State Teacher of the Year. We're looking forward to working with you, and we thank Shonda Jefferson so much for the wonderful job she did as the 2020 Teacher of the Year. This afternoon, I just wanted to say a few words to you, and then I look forward to answering your questions. I think finally we are at a spot where districts have a plan in place, and we know a little more now about what is about to happen, and there's an excitement in the air. I know there's still anxiety and nervousness. I'm nervous myself about getting out in the public and being with people. I've tried to be very, very careful and be at home as much as I can and social distance. And so as we go out into the public and into schools, there's a nervousness there. But I want to tell you, I had a wonderful visit. I've been in several schools over the last couple weeks, one here in Saluda where I live, where they were having their academic recovery camp, and the children were obedient. They were wearing their masks. They were maintaining social distancing. The teachers were so excited to be back with them, and there was a lot of really good learning going on. Today we were in Charleston at Matilda Dunstan Elementary School. Cheryl Savage is the principal there, and Dr. Jarita Postaway, a number of teachers. Postaway is the superintendent and a great friend, and I met with a number of teachers, and I just seeing their excitement and how they have prepared so well for the children to come back in. We walked through a few of the buildings and saw the air purifiers that are going to be used in the nurse's office and the masks that are available, and saw how their class tables are set with the plexiglass dividing the children. Even saw where one teacher's using hula hoops on the floor for the little ones to space them out. So just everyone's being very creative and getting ready for the children to come back in. at Dunston, they're bringing in their students next week by appointment during leap days, which I thought was a great idea. And while the children are going to be getting some assessments, the parents will be going to have an orientation on how to use their new Chromebooks. So we're doing a lot of things to make sure that not only that we're ready, but the students are ready and that their parents are ready, too, to support us in what we're doing. So it's an exciting time of the year, and I just appreciate so much everything you all have done since March, over the summer, and now getting ready for whatever type of delivery that you're going to be involved with instruction in your school district and at your school. So it's an exciting time, but just know that we're all pulling for you and praying that things will go safely. There's no way we can guarantee 100% safety, but as I said to some folks today, we're going to do everything we possibly can to get it as close to 100% safe as possible. And I think now our mission is to put into action all the words that we put down in our plans. Now we just got to go out and do it safely and follow the protocols. So we're looking forward to a great year, and I'm looking forward to hearing your questions. I'll do my best to answer them for you.
Thank you. Superintendent Spearman, for being with us. Now we have our first poll question of the evening. So we would like to ask our listeners on the call tonight that which of the following best describes your comfort level in returning to the face-to-face teaching? Press 1 if you're not comfortable at all. Press 2 if you're somewhat uncomfortable. 3 if you're somewhat comfortable. And 4 if you are comfortable in returning to face-to-face teaching. I'll repeat that again. Which of the following describes your comfort level when returning to face-to-face teaching? Number 1, not at all. Number 2, somewhat uncomfortable. 3, somewhat comfortable. And 4, comfortable. As poll results come in, we would like to share with you as you answer this. We'll give you the results here in a moment. So go ahead and answer how you feel about returning to face-to-face teaching.
So as the poll results come in, I would like to pose a question to Superintendent Spearman that both of the organizations have heard frequently from the members. So can you tell us what are the state's face mask requirements and guidelines?
Well, thanks, Kathy. I'll be glad to go over the requirement. And as you know, we at first just said highly recommended for students and staff to wear face masks. But as we got more and more research in on the effectiveness of face masks, and really after I visited a school and saw how well even little children who were there for face-to-face, and I think they're probably the most important for us to get back so they can get those foundations of reading and math strongly. I saw how well they were following that school's guidelines that I decided that I should come out boldly and say that face masks will be required on school buses in South Carolina and in our school facilities. Now, we have followed guidelines from the CDC and from DHEC, and if you want to see this information, it is on our website, but we are asking that everyone, when they get on a school bus, that they have on a mask, and we need families to support us with that and provide masks. Now, we will have masks available. The bus driver, we've ordered several 100,000 disposable masks, and if a student comes out to the bus without a mask, the bus driver will have one to hand them, and then the student goes back and sits down. We're not asking the bus drivers to patrol to make sure they put them on. That would be great, and hopefully everybody will comply. But those issues of whether or not the child wears the mask or not, that will be handled, with the principal or the teacher at the school, not the bus driver's responsibility. So we're saying everyone needs to have on a mask when they get on the bus. Now, there are some medical exemptions, or students who, of course, any student younger than 2, I don't know that we would have any riding buses younger than 2. If there's a disability, or if they can't take their own mask on and off, certainly there are exemptions that need to be there. We're also asking that as you enter the facility, same rules apply. Everyone, unless they're exempt by medical reason or some other disability, that you would have your mask on moving to the hallways and to your classroom. Now, once you get in the classroom, we understand that particularly younger children, and our policy actually talks about this, younger children, it may be a real challenge working with those who have trouble breathing, and again, if they can't remove the face mask, they would be exempt. But we know that wearing the mask all day long in the classroom could be a challenge. So we're leaving that direction there to the individual school and district and teacher. If the teacher says, you can have a face mask break now, you can have those. But for the ultimate safety, you really do need to leave your mask on. But we're leaving those kind of details to the district. Teachers need to wear their mask during the day. There's been some questions to us about the face shields, and we've ordered a number of those face shields for folks to have. And the rule on the face shield for teachers is if you're up in front of the classroom, you can get by with just that face shield. But if you get close to a student, the evidence is really not out there that the shield is as safe as a face mask. So the CDC asks that you have a face mask close by that you could put on if you get within a few feet of a student. So that generally covers the policy. There is some flexibility. We know some school districts had already put out their policies. Some are doing a little less maybe with some of the elementary grades. Some are more. Some are saying everybody all day long and only medical exceptions. So there is some flexibility with each district, but the general consensus is face mask on the bus, arriving at the building, in the hallways, and in the classrooms unless the teacher or school gives you some other direction for some type of break during the day.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent Spearman. We do have the results from our first poll question. The question was, which of the following best describes your comfort to return to face-to-face teaching? 41% of our teachers who said not comfortable at all. 34% said somewhat uncomfortable. 17% said somewhat comfortable, and 8% said comfortable. So thank you for doing that. Now we're going to move to our first question for Superintendent Spearman from a participant, and that's going to be from Heather in the Low Country. Heather, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. My question is, I'm very eager to get back to my classroom. However, we're being asked to teach both face-to-face and virtual simultaneously, and I'm in a primary grade level. I'm wondering how that's supposed to work, how I keep my kids at school safe while focusing on the kids at home, how I keep the privacy of IEPs and things like that from the people at home. I just have a lot of questions how that's supposed to work with me doing both virtual and face-to-face at the same time.
Sure. And Heather, and thank you. And what grade level do you teach, Heather? I'm not sure if you maybe you're already muted, but it's a great question. And pardon?
She's back on. Heather, what grade do you teach?
Kindergarten.
Okay. Wow.
That's going to be a busy day for sure, Heather. And I don't know. Different districts are handling this in different ways. Some are, most all, and they're required to offer a virtual option, as you know, for all families, because there are some families who do not feel comfortable at all sending their student back. Districts are handling that virtual option differently. Some are having just a straight virtual program that they're contracting with. Some districts are offering their own virtual program. And then I have heard of some like you are talking, it sounds like you're describing where the teacher would be teaching, but it might be live streaming. while you're teaching in the classroom. And I can see how that could work in some content areas where you could just deliver your same lesson plan and not have to make an additional lesson plan for the students, and would keep your class size down as it would normally be if it's those students. But I know that's going to really be difficult with a kindergarten. I hope that your district is offering you some really good professional development to help you know how to handle that. And I'll be interested, to see how that works. But I think I know we're asking an awful lot of teachers, and I know you all always step up and do what's asked of you. But I think, Heather, for that situation, I would just watch it very carefully and work with your principal at the school to see. I know my little granddaughter is 4, and she's been in some Zoom meetings, and just keeping 4 and 5-year-olds, they show up on the Zoom meeting for a few minutes, and it's chaos, and then they all run off and play. So I know you got a great challenge there. So I would work very, very closely with your principal at the school and keep them posted on how that's going and if it's working or not, and we'll evaluate. They need to work with you and evaluate as you move through the first few weeks of school.
Good. Thank you, Heather, for that question. And I will tell you, we have had teachers calling us with that same concern, and I'm sure Sherry with the SCA has had the same. So thank you again for that question, and thank you, Superintendent Spearman, for your response. Before we go to our next question from a participant, let's do a second poll question. Now, we have almost 3,000 people on the phone with us tonight, so please, if you get a chance, take advantage of this poll question. So as a reminder, please listen to the question and all the answers, and then press the button on your phone that corresponds to your answer choice. So here's the question. Which of the following are you concerned about the most for the start of the school year? Number 1, physical safety and well-being of you, your colleagues, and your students. Number 2, mental health and well-being of you, your colleagues, and your students. Number 3, insufficient resources for health and safety, such as hand sanitizer and cleaning supplies. Number 4, insufficient instructional resources, such as devices, internet access, etc. So I'm going to repeat that one more time. Which of the following are you concerned about the most for the start of the school year? Number 1, physical safety and well-being of you, your colleagues, and your students. Number 2, mental health and well-being of you, your colleagues, and your students. Number 3, insufficient resources for health and safety. Or number 4, insufficient instructional resources. So please, go on and press your number for the poll question. We'll move on. Sherry was having a little bit of trouble, so I'll go ahead. As the poll results come in, we are ready for another question for Superintendent Spearman from a participant. After you've voted in the poll, please remember that you can submit a question for Superintendent Spearman by pressing number 9. So let's see. The next question is going to be, let me see, from Emily from the Low Country. Emily, are you still there?
I am.
Okay. Ask your question to Superintendent Spearman.
So I am a teacher in the Low Country, and I only have 10 sick days because I had a preemie the year before last, and I burned through them all. And we are guaranteed 2 weeks of paid leave from the CARES Act. And after that, any future quarantine would take away from our own sick leave. So I was wondering if the state is going to do anything to support districts in offering teachers paid sick leave.
Well, Emily, thanks a lot, and I hope your little new one is growing and really doing well. And I know how hard it is to go back to teaching after you have any time that you've been home on summer vacation, or especially, though, when you have a little one at home. So good luck, and I hope it all goes well for you. You're right. The CARES Act the Federal CARES Act guidelines does allow for additional sick leave, up to 2 weeks, additional sick leave, paid sick leave, if you're unable to work due to COVID-19 symptoms, or if you're seeking a diagnosis. You can have up to another 2 weeks of paid sick leave at 2/3 of your regular pay. Same situation if you're caring for a child, or you can see those different designations. But at the current time, there is nothing that I know of where the state is offering additional sick leave. It would be something that you would work out with your own district. I know for us, just at our own agency, we have a sick leave pool that folks contribute to, and so I'm sure that there would be some of those kinds of opportunities, but to my knowledge, I have not heard any additional sick leave being proposed at the state level.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Spearman. I'm going to read the poll question one more time. So if you get a chance, please press your number that relates to you. Which of the following are you concerned about the most for the start of the school year? Number 1, the physical safety and well-being of you, your colleagues, and your students. Number 2, the mental health and well-being of you, your colleagues, and students. Number 3, insufficient resources for health and safety. And number 4, insufficient instructional resources. So please press 1, 2, 3, or 4 on your phone. And while we're waiting to get those polling results, we will go ahead and hear a question from another participant. So we are going to hear from John from the Midlands. John, can you hear me?
Yes. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah. So what is your question for Superintendent Spearman?
Superintendent Spearman, thank you for taking my question. This is something that I know is a big concern and has been asked at my district, but we don't have a clear answer for it yet. My question to you is, do we have, or are we working on, a threshold number for cases within a school or district that would trigger a mandated return to all virtual classroom instruction?
Well, you're right, John. I've heard that question a lot, and here's what I have said to superintendents and what the DHEC health experts have taught with us. There is no magic threshold number for COVID, but district officials and principals are being instructed to follow similar procedures that they would have on any type of infectious disease spread. And, often during the winter months, sometimes a community will have a big outbreak of the flu. And so it's different, and, I hesitate to even say any number because folks kind of take that, that's what it's going to be. But in talking with different superintendents, it's sometimes, around, if you've got 20% of your students out or teachers out, it becomes even more difficult to operate. So it's more about how can you operate. Do you have the folks, the personnel, the staff there to operate? And that will be a decision that will be made at the local level, working with your local DHEC officials. So one class being closed, and I get a lot of questions, and maybe someone will ask about that, even what happens if one person gets sick, or what if there's a child on a school bus who is infected, what happens then, or if the bus driver's infected. Each case has its own protocol, and so we look really quickly and need to turn to some type of contact tracing. How many people did this child or this teacher come in contact with within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. And if that is the case, then those folks would probably would be quarantined and go through the regular protocol. So it's a complex question, but again, to say no. There is no specific number, but it's about how can the school operate, and following similar procedures for any other infectious disease, working with the local DHEC recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Our members have a lot of questions and concerns about the coming year, so we want to take another question for Superintendent Spearman from a participant, and that person is going to be Kathleen Crumpler from the Low Country. Kathleen, are you there? Okay. All right. Let's go to a next polling question while we're waiting. Which of the following do you consider the most important resource the state could provide to schools for the remainder of this calendar year? Number 1, school nurses. Number 2, additional protective equipment. Number 3, interventionist in science and math. And number 4, health and safety facility upgrades. Again, which of the following do you consider the most important resource the state could provide to schools for the remainder of this calendar year? Number 1, school nurses. Number 2, additional protective equipment. Number 3, interventionist in science and math. And number 4, health and safety facility upgrades. So again, we have almost 3,000 participants on the call. Please answer the poll questions, 1, 2, 3, or 4. All right, so let's see. Were we able to get Kathleen? Kathleen, are you on the line?
Are you talking to Kathleen Archino or
Kathleen Crumpler? Okay. Do you want to ask your question to Superintendent Spearman?
Creating the situation for us to talk to Dr. Spearman. My question is, or my question is that school districts, why were school districts, or what was the reasoning for allowing school districts to reopen with face-to-face instruction when they have not met the gating guidelines provided by DHEC and Accelerated SC? For example, in the Low Country, there is a high positivity rate, delays in testing results, and inadequate contact tracing. Is the Department of Education considering, for instance, the situation in Georgia? And if so, will you recommend that those districts go to virtual only?
Well, thank you. And I think it's Kathleen. Thank you so much for the
yes,
question.
Ma'am.
I think I need to give a little explanation, because certainly we are following DHEC guidelines, and we have the indicators that DHEC has given us. But I think I know the experts from DHEC will tell you that the disease activity is one indicator in the decision. And as you all know, children need to be in school, and particularly our most vulnerable students and our young children who are just learning to read, and students who need us for the emotional, social support and the food and nutrition support. So there's so many factors, and as I have observed, even different communities are reacting different because they are the infection is different in different communities and in different populations of people. So the chart that you often look at that DHEC puts out weekly, yes, it is information that we use, but it is one indicator. And I think the reason that you see some districts moving towards some type of face-to-face is that they feel that their facility will allow them to social distance well, or they have enough of their community who has signed up to go virtual or remote learning that it has created a much smaller population for them to be able to handle it and to really provide a very, very safe environment for their students. So if you notice on our website, and DHEC's website now, they have a little disclaimer there about the chart of the spread, the incident rate, the trend in incident rate, and then the percent positive, saying that this should be one indicator in making the decision. So the department, our responsibility now, and we are working very closely with districts, we want to encourage folks to try to get back to face-to-face as soon and as when it's safe and possible. So we will be working with them. And again, just like I said earlier in my remarks, now is the time for us to put in action all the plans, and let's do it, and let's see what happens, and in as safe as an environment as we can make. But again, I think our first responsibility is the safety of our children and our staff, and this really dedication to try to get back to some type of contact, putting our eyes on the students so that we can have some type of personal relationship with them, really to support them with all the other things beyond just the content that we do every day in schools.
Thank you, Superintendent Spearman. So we do have the results from our polling question. The question was, which of the following do you consider the most important resource the state could provide to schools for the remainder of the calendar year? 17% of you said a school nurse. 26% said additional protective equipment. 11% said interventionist in science and math. And 46% of you said health and safety facility upgrades. So that was some very important information for us there. So we now will hear another question, Superintendent Spearman, and this is from Carmen from the Upstate. Carmen, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. The question that I have is, have we gotten any word on a waiver for state testing? And is there any plan on how to deal with students whose parents refuse to bring them into the building for state testing, for mandated testing?
Okay, all right, Carmen, that's a great question. I came out, I guess, almost a month and a half ago and said that I would seek a waiver from the U.S. Department of Education to dismiss all the federal state testing, which, or the federal tests that are required. When the legislature came back in to appropriate some of the CARES Act funding, they actually voted in favor of that. I was surprised, and they added that to their debate while they were in town. So they supported that. We have sent the letter to the U.S. Department of Education and have not received a response yet on it. I'll tell you, there are two other states I know of who had asked for the same thing, and they fairly quickly got a response back. It had been denied. I hope that the mood has changed in Washington. I know this topic is being discussed all across the country. My feeling on it is that we've got more important things that we need to be doing, and hopefully we can be in school in the spring, and we need to be using those days for class instruction. Obviously, you have to give assessments, and that's part of the reason we're doing the LEAP days, to give you a chance to evaluate your children, assess and see where they are, and you as great teachers will be doing that throughout the year and getting really good information back that you will use in the classroom. But our state test and those federal tests that we give are really information that does not give you a lot of help while you're teaching in the classroom. It's more for the adults and more for comparative reasons that we use those at the state level. So I believe we should exempt those this year. I'm going to be doing everything I possibly can, but I don't have a definitive answer. We have to get approval from the U.S. Department of Education, and really Congress would have to act on this in order to assist us with it, so we're waiting for that. But I'll let you know just as soon as we find out, and we'll keep fighting for it.
Thank you, everyone. We have our next question from Samuel in the upstate. So, Samuel, proceed with your question. Thank you.
Thank you. My question was very close to John's question, so I am going to pass my time to the next person who has a question.
Well, thanks, Samuel. And that was regarding the threshold number about when schools might close down. So I appreciate that. And, you know, again, if you all want to see the protocols, I get a lot of questions, and there's so many different scenarios. What happens if a family member is sick and a spouse is teaching, or a child has a family member? All of those different protocols are very specific, and in the DHEC information that is on our website, linked on our website, and has been sent to your superintendents and your principals, so they will know how to react appropriately. And again, I think we owe it to the public to say, look, one case or even, you know, a teacher being sick, that does not mean that the entire school will shut down, and they need to understand that. It needs to be handled very professionally, and try to keep operations going if possible. But if it gets to a point that can't be done, then obviously the school would be closed.
Thank you for answering that, Superintendent Spearman. The next question several people have asked that we've heard is, before we get to our next polling question, is what if we go to school and our districts have these beautiful plans and then we're not following the plans, or the children are refusing to wear their masks? Who should we turn to, or any advice you can give our members on what to do when the state or the districts aren't following their own plan? What would you suggest?
Well, you know, you can let me know. You know, you can give us a call at the department. We don't like being policemen, but, you know, I've made 2 or 3 speeches in the last two days, and working and had teachers and principals there in the group, and you know, I had gotten a report of one school that opened, and the principal was standing in the door greeting the children without a face mask on. So I said, please don't do that. You know, we've written all these really smart plans and using best practices of what the right protocols are. So we're the adults now, and we've got to set a good role model for our students, and that goes from the custodian or the bus driver who sees the children very first thing in the morning, to us as teachers, principals, football coaches, band directors, music teachers. We all need to follow these protocols and set a good example. And if there's a child who's not following those, you know, it needs to be handled in a very gentle way. We don't want children getting expelled for not wearing a mask, but it needs to be handled in a gentle way. But if a family chooses not to participate by wearing masks, then in my opinion, you know, there is another option. There is a virtual option. And as one superintendent has said, that coming to school now is a real privilege. And we don't take this very lightly at all, and so we're expecting students and staff members to abide by the policies, and if they, for whatever reason, now again, that's with medical exemptions and those things, exceptions, we take those and give consideration to all of those, but just to say I don't like wearing a mask, then maybe you need to be remote learning.
Well, thank you. That's good to hear, Superintendent Spearman. Next, we have our 4th polling question, and it's a doozy of a question. So here we go. The accelerate yeah, it's a sad one. It's a sad but a truth many of us are facing right now. is the Accelerate Ed Task Force recommendations called for districts to implement full distance learning if there is high spread of COVID. In the event that your district chooses not to follow that recommendation, what impact would this have on your decision to continue teaching in your district? So number one, it would have no impact at all, and I plan to continue to teach in my district. Number two, a medium impact. I would continue to teach in my district, but more likely to seek employment elsewhere in the future. Number three, a significant impact. I will seek to breach my contract and leave my district as soon as possible. So in the event that your district is not following the Accelerate Ed Task Force recommendations, what does this mean for your future employment? One, no impact, and I plan to teach in my district. Two, a medium impact, and I would continue to teach, but more likely to seek employment elsewhere in the future. And three, a significant impact, and I would seek to breach my contract and leave the district as soon as possible. So we would hate to lose any of our educators out there, but we know we get a lot of calls about this. Kathy and I have actually asked to have the contract waived and no penalty applied for COVID departures right now, but we know that may be happening in some districts. So please answer our poll and let us know how you're feeling about your employment with COVID. And now we'll return to some. Yes, ma'am.
Before we go on to the next question, Ryan Brown, who's our communications director, just sent me a suggestion that for any of those issues that you might see where a school administration may not be enforcing the face mask or not following the procedures, safe procedures within the facility, that if you want to, if there's a complaint, we have a web email address. It's info info at ed.sc.gov, info@ed.sc.gov. And we actually have already handled some complaints that have come to that address. So if there are issues that you think we might be able to help, I will tell you up front, we don't at the department get involved with, teacher contracts, those kinds of things. That has to go through your district, and it would be better if you let Sherry or Kathy know about those kinds of things. But for sure, anything with procedures, cleaning of the buildings, if you think that it's not being handled properly, that's a place where you could let us know.
Thank you, Superintendent Spearman. And next we'll go to some more questions. We had a Dennis at the Low Country. If he is still on, is Dennis on the call from the Low Country? If not Dennis, we'll go to Ashley. Not hearing a Dennis yet, but is there an Ashley from the middle? Oh, there he is. There he is. Hi, Dennis.
Hi. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Hi. Oh, okay. Hi, Superintendent Spearman. Thank you so much for taking my question. Is there anything coming out of the state related to where virtual or remote teaching should take place? I happen to be in a high-risk health category and would like to teach virtually or even remotely from my home if at all possible. However, that's not a possibility in my district. The district would like all teachers to report to a school.
Yes. Well, and I think that decision, that is not something that the state has mandated, Dennis, and it's being treated differently in different districts. I would ask you, to go to your superintendent or your personnel office and try and work with them. I will say this, though, that I have been saying, and I think we all agree, that the expectations for all of us, whether it's students, teachers, principals, the expectation for the learning and the work that will be going on in a few weeks or even next week for some is much higher than it was in March. You know, we had to make a decision. It was a difficult one. I think it was the right decision, but it did have its consequences in that we did not even take attendance after March 16th. And
right, and
teachers, you know, and it was, that decision was made because of so much disparity across the state. I mean, we had some districts that could deliver really good remote learning, and others that were, you know, could not, and families that did not have the internet. So it was almost impossible. So I had to make that decision, and we made that. But you know, the consequences were hundreds and hundreds of students that did not engage, thousands. So we've got to do better. We've got to do better. And I think the requirement that some districts have made to say that teachers need to come into the building and do their remote or their virtual teaching from the building is part of that, just that expectation. We can provide you a safe place to come into your room, and we believe that it gives you and more attention and undivided attention to the students. So I understand why districts are requiring that, and you know, I hope that you can have a very safe place to go in and do your work.
Thank you so much for answering my question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Superintendent Spearman. We still have time for our poll question. I'm going to read it one more time, and y'all be sure to answer 1, 2, or 3 on this one. On the Accelerate ED Task Force recommended districts to implement full distance learning when a county is experiencing high spread of COVID-19. In the event your district chooses not to follow that recommendation, what impact could that have on your decision to continue teaching in your district? Number 1, no impact. I will plan to continue teaching in my district. Press 2 if it's medium impact. I will continue teaching in my district, but I am more likely to seek employment elsewhere in the future. And number 3, significant impact. I will seek to breach my contract and leave my district as soon as possible. So press 1, 2, or 3 there. And now we will take another question from Ashley from the Midlands.
Hi.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi. Yes, my question is, what are the state mandates, or do y'all have any on class sizes? I know right now I have four classes, and each one of my classes is averaging about 44 students.
And what do you teach, Ashley?
I teach science.
Science. And what grade level is
it? 6th grade.
Is that right? Well, the class size is a difficult question to answer because there's different rules for different age groups, different subjects. Obviously, the related arts, the class sizes are much larger there. And I do think we all are expecting and understanding why class sizes, if there's ever a time that they need to be small, it's now, because being able to fit students into a classroom and maintain some good social distancing. DHEC, as you know, in our Accelerate Ed report, DHEC has said to the extent possible 6 feet, which gives you a little bit of wiggle room, but still you want those desks spaced out. Now, I taught in some real old buildings in my career, and some of those old facilities have these enormous old classrooms with high ceilings that you could spread out, and you might be able to get 25 students in a room or 30, but 40 does seem awfully high. I think you may need to talk with your principal about that, but I can't recite to you those specific numbers for 6th grade science, but I'll be happy, Kathy, if you'll help me remember that, to find that exact number for her. But it is different in different subject areas and in different grade levels. But this is a year where we're expecting those to be much lower because you've got to be able to spread those children out. So I don't know if Ashley's still on the line, if she teaches in an old facility where she might be able to do that, but that would sound like almost a gymnasium to have that much space. So I would be concerned, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley and Superintendent Spearman. I would say, Ashley, you need to call PSTA or the SCA, whichever group you're part of, because that's something we've been working on.
That sounds awfully large, yeah.
Yeah, that's a large for any class unless you're a band or PE teacher. So we now have our polling results from our question number 4, which I will share with you now. And the sad results here is 15% of our listeners said that they would have no impact and that would continue to teach in their district regardless of what their district plan was. 40% say that's a medium impact and you plan to teach this year, but you will seek other employment in the future. And 45% of our listeners said that they plan to leave their district as soon as possible if their district is not following the task force recommendations and they don't feel safe in the classroom. So again, 15% no impact, 40 medium impact, and 45% of you on the call say you would leave as soon as possible from your teaching position. So please reach out to your 2 organizations and let us know what we can do to assist you, either in getting some safety measures in place for you or what we can do to assist you, unfortunately, with your decision. I know that's a tough one that you wrestle with about your own safety and your profession. So now I think we have some remarks from Kathy. I'll turn it back to her.
Okay. Well, Superintendent Spearman, you have heard a great deal from our members through the polling questions and the questions that they've asked you so far on this call. What has stood out to you the most in the conversation that we've had in the last hour?
Tonight? Well, first of all, I really appreciate you all taking time out of your afternoon just to talk and give me a chance to speak with you and for me to hear you, because I hear a lot of anxiety in your questions, and obviously some of you don't feel comfortable going back to school. I'd say this, our students really need you. We need you, and I want to do everything I can to help build your confidence that you can go back, if at all possible. I know many have health reasons or family situations that they can't. But the school I was in today at Matilda Dunstan down in North Charleston, I have to say I felt very safe in the school, and the teachers seemed to be very comfortable. They've done an excellent job in planning, and the district has done a really nice job. And looking at the data, they're coming in very small groups, trying to accommodate those children whose families really need to work and be back. But it's extraordinary the length that they've gone to with the defoggers and the air purifiers and the mask. And we've done a lot in the state. We have ordered from the Department of Education, we have ordered 5 cloth masks for each of you. For custodians, cafeteria workers, bus drivers. We have an additional $10 million order that just went in this week, on Monday, I believe it was, where from Governor McMaster's CARES Fund Act for additional face masks, gowns for nurses, plexiglass for schools. We've got our buses equipped to be cleaned twice a day. So we are doing things to help make the environment safe. And I understand anxiety, but I hope that you can give it a try. You're so important. And if anything has come out of this pandemic, I think one good thing is that people, while I've always known how important public education is, and you do, but I think everybody realizes that now. And it's not just the content knowledge for our students, but it's all the things that we do and the integral part of a community that schools are. So while I know we all have anxieties, but I just hope and pray that with all the safety efforts that we are taking, and that you will need to do working with your students that you can feel comfortable coming back with a small population. Now, I agree. Our administrators have a huge responsibility to you. Our school board members have a huge responsibility, and I do too, to provide that environment and do everything. So, if you feel that your district has not done what they should, or if you hear of ideas that one district has done that really has improved the safety, you need to let us know, and we'll do the best we can to help intervene in that. But I appreciate you, and I know deep in your heart you all want to be back in the classroom because that's why you became a teacher in the first place. So I just hope that we can get to a point where you feel comfortable and you can get back to doing what you do so well.
Well, thank you, Superintendent Spearman. We have over 3,000 educators on this call, so we appreciate you and the staff at the State Department of Education for their work this summer to prepare for the unique challenges of reopening school this year during a pandemic. And thank you for sharing your time and insights on the call tonight. And congratulations to Sarah Gams, our new Teacher of the Year. I know Sherry and I both look forward to working with you this year as you begin representing teachers and being an ambassador to all the wonderful teachers we have here in South Carolina. And while we didn't have time to get to every question, the questions are being shared with the staff at the Department of Education so they can better be informed about the concerns and questions of our educators on the call today. Thank you, participants, for joining us and for everything you are doing to prepare for a safe return to instruction for our South Carolina students. Please know that both PSTA and the SCEA are honored to serve you and to support you and to be there for you if anything comes up. So please give us a call if you have any concerns. I hope you have a great night. I hope you have a wonderful start to the school year. And thank you again for joining us today.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye, everyone.